Welcome to my dad's car. Enjoy!
Welcome to My Dad's Car, a podcast discussing our personal relationship with automotive nostalgia. And you know what? It doesn't even have to be about your dad's car. It can be your mum's, your grand's, your parents', guardians, or even a neighbour's. If it made an impression, let's talk about it. Hello.
Hey. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes. I've not plugged my mic in though. That will make a massive difference. 2 secs. Cool. So, Ed.
Yes.
Meet Jon. Jon, Ed.
Hi, Ed.
Hi, Jon. You all right?
Nice to meet you.
Cool. Yeah, for the benefit of the tape, I met Ed running something called B Road Hunting Club, which is sort of an automotive destination, would you call it, Ed?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, I guess a place for like-minded car enthusiasts to get together and just, appreciate the automotive side of and the social side of cars, I guess.
Yeah, at the time you were based kind of outside Lewes, weren't you? And you're now, Ashford, Kent, over that way?
Yeah, so just the other side of Ashford, in a place called Challock. It's basically between the M20 and the M2, and then Maidstone and Canterbury. Is the best way. It's on a crossroads. It crosses two main A roads, the 252 and the 251. So yeah, right on that crossroads.
So yeah, I came to know Ed through doing that, running kind of some Porsche meetings and stuff, and we kept in touch. I've been along to a few things. Not managed to make it to the Stag yet, which is the latest place, but hopefully soon. Yeah,
the jewel in our crown currently.
Or the thorn in your side. One.
The thorn in our side. Yeah, one or the other. Yeah, depends what day. Ask me on a good day, and it's a jewel in our crown. Otherwise, it's a thorn in my side.
So, let's jump in. Thanks for joining us, Ed. And we start these all the same, really, with asking you to recall your earliest motoring memory.
This is something I guess I've been asked on numerous occasions, and I recall the first. I guess now I think back, was my granddad had a Mk1 Escort.
Okay.
Burgundy, vinyl leather seats, that even now if I smell vinyl in an old school car and it's got, it's been sat out in the sun, you get that nostalgic. Yeah. I mean, we all know that, you know that smell. We can all appreciate it's like, that takes me right back to, that's probably my very first memory of cars and how I, in the car I remember. So surprised I'm not involved more in Fords, but that is, thinking back on it, that is it. That is my first sort of memory.
So what was that, 3-door, 5-door?
No, it was a 3-door. I think the 1.6. It was probably, my granddad was a mechanic, and he had that car for easily 10 years.
Okay.
But it was always garaged, always clean, always polished. Like a burgundy with really nice black vinyl, like the biscuit weave type seats.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably my earliest recall of any car that I can think of.
Do you remember what happened to it, Ed?
Well, I know he swapped it eventually when it became too expensive to repair, and he ended up with a Talbot Samba in red. And that's what I mean. It's just, I think my granddad was probably the guy that got me into the love of cars. But I didn't know it then, I got into cars very, very late on. So I feel like I'm playing catch up.
The Talbot Samba, that's a blast, isn't it?
It's a great name.
I don't think it was a great car, got to be brutally honest. I think that probably broke down more than the Ford in the end. But I mean, he loved those sort of old cars. And then I guess after that, again, very much along the similar vein, my father-in-law, when I first met my wife, he had a Nissan, Nissan Sunny.
Okay.
With like grey velour interior. So not quite sure why maybe I do know why I've stepped away from all of that sort of older classic stuff. So yeah, guess they're my earliest memory.
What cars did your parents have growing up? Do you recall? Or
Yeah, I mean, my dad's had some pretty cool cars. Had a Renault 5 GT. Is it Renault 5 GT?
they did a turbo, didn't they? I think GT Turbo.
Turbo, yeah, he had one of those. He had a Mk1 Golf GTI in black, which I remember helping put on red Go Faster stripes.
And did they work?
What, the Go Faster stripes? No.
Yeah.
No, that car. I think, my dad has always, and even now, he's no different now, always buys a bit of a dog of a car. So it always seems a very good car on paper, but then when you get it, you end up spending more money to get it fixed. They were probably the ones. And then, just some I don't know, Vauxhall, when we were growing up, like the parents' sort of wagons, like a Vauxhall Zafira and a Astra van. And, my dad's car is from A to B. Like, he doesn't care what it looks like. It is a means of transport. He's not a car guy at all. He probably didn't even know what he was buying was a Golf GTI, It was one of those other ones from the Figaro thing with the random glass back. Not figure. You just don't sit, like, based on a Renault 19.
Oh, Renault Fuego?
Yeah, Fuego, that sort of, one of them. He had one of them as well, which, again, I think we had for about 2 weeks and then he got rid of it. So, just...
Where was he getting these cars from, Ed? Do you know?
Probably, and people that live around here will probably know, probably out of like the free ads or like the Friday ads. I mean, you guys must have know what Friday ad is. I mean, that probably, or some dodgy mate that he knew. I've got this really good car. Oh yeah, I'll buy it cheap, and then end up stuck with it. And so no, that's what there isn't a. It's weird, isn't it? My dad probably changed his cars as often as I do, and Andy's known me a while, and I've had a fair few cars since Andy's known me. So I probably get that bit from my dad, definitely.
He was changing them, though, because they blew up or something, though, I'm guessing, rather than because he wanted the next big thing. I mean, like, I change it because I get bored, right? Mm.
Maybe that's one of the downsides to owning, say, the destination for petrol heads. Every week I see something that turns up at B Road and I'm like, I need to own that. That is a very cool car. And that happened when we were at Bentley. When I saw, obviously, the 944 and are still hankering after a Porsche 944, to the point where I'm actually, the Mini that I'm sitting in now is for sale, and that might be something that replaces it. Something with a roof and doors, as opposed to my current summer daily.
You know someone with a 944, don't you, Andy? Oh, I know a few people, yeah.
Yes, yeah. I know them as well.
So, your granddad had those cars. Did your mum drive?
My mum drove fairly late on. She had a Mini Metro. She had two consecutively, a white one and a red one. And then she moved on to a Vauxhall Astra, like the one with the bubble back type vibe.
Yeah.
And then after that, she had a Mini automatic, a Mini one in pepper white, nice R56 that me and my brother helped her buy. After that, she upgraded and got a 1499 GT, the new shape in black and gold.
Okay.
Again, my mum was driven by that. She liked the colour. So it was black on the outside with a nice red sort of interior. And she's recently, about a year or so ago, changed that and has now got a smart car. I think in the 3 years she'd had it, she'd done less than 5,000 miles. I ended up getting more money back for the Mini when I part exchanged it for her than she paid for it.
Okay.
But yeah, she's loving it. I mean, it's got paddle shift, which is every now and again, my car seems to be revving. No, Mum, you've hit the paddles. You just press a little button on the side and it'll put it in auto again. I can just see it now going along the seafront, just revving the arse off this little smart car going, I don't know why it won't change gear. So yeah, no, my mum learnt to drive fairly late on as well. And that's pretty much my mum's. I mean, that's not bad, is it? 5 cars in 25 years, maybe?
Pretty good going, that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I wish I could... wish I had the same statistic. I think I've had 25 cars in 5 years.
Yeah, going back to kind of the age when like your granddad had the Escort, for example, do you recall family holidays, trips out or whatever? Where would you be going and who would be in the car?
Yeah, so if we went out, obviously my nan and granddad, me and my brother, it would always be, if we went in my granddad's car, my mum didn't drive then, so if she came with us, we'd always, me and my brother would always opt to go with nan and granddad, right? It was, used to get away with more, you get treated, it was always good stuff. So it was always me and my brother at the time in my nan and granddad's car, and my granddad was in the RAF.
Okay.
So we'd always go to air shows. We'd always head to Headcorn.
Yep.
And have a picnic there and watch the parachuting and watch the aeroplanes. Or we'd go to Folkestone when they had an outdoor, aeroplane, or we'd go to Biggin Hill. They were pretty much, I remember going on holiday to Norfolk and going all the way up in the Escort and then, wandering around Sandringham and places like that. My nan and granddad weren't one for going abroad. They would go away on their own and they'd always go to Croatia or Malta.
Okay.
But yeah, driving wise, Headcorn was pretty much the go-to destination at a weekend.
Yeah.
They're all still into aeroplanes. I don't mind them, but it's just like, you know what? They all do the same thing.
And driving along, was your grandfather a smoker or did he have the radio on?
No, I always remember he always wore driving gloves.
Okay.
He did smoke back in the day, but never smoked. And I guess, if the radio was on, or it would be a cassette, I suppose. And it was always, like Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, that old school swings type stuff.
Nice.
Which is where I guess my love of that sort of stuff comes from. If I want to just chill out, that's my sort of go-to. Whether that, I don't know, subliminally, maybe that is from the road trips and the journeys. But yeah, I'd say that was what he played. Never the radio, always a cassette.
Yeah.
There's no escaping, is there, whatever's put on in the car in terms of music? So it does just get ingrained in your head. And then sort of 10, 15 years later, when it comes on the radio and you're sort of bopping away, you think, oh, that's why I like that.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great thing about music. Like you say, absolutely in a car you can, but any tune puts you in a time, right? If you hear it, you're like, where was I? So my mum always played the radio in the car, and she still does now, like to the point where she can't hear the engine, the music's so loud.
What's she listening to, Ed? Which station she tuned into?
Probably Heart FM. No, my mum, it's the same if you go and see her at her house. It's never a TV on. It's always the radio is blaring out. It's probably why she can't hear the engine revving, because the radio's drowning it out. I'm not one for the radio. I think, we're spoilt now, aren't we? We've got Spotify and now don't listen to the radio because my car doesn't have a radio.
So Ed's got a Morgan.
That explains it.
That has no roof, no doors, no nothing.
You take a wireless in with you, Ed.
Yes, we've tried 2 or 3 different solutions and none of them work. So let's just go without. It's great though, because you can't hear your passengers screaming because you can't hear them either.
I was just going to go back to Grandad and the driving gloves. Have either of you ever tried driving with gloves on before? In like a road car? What's the benefit of it? Is it like a cleanliness thing, or is it for grip? Or because I see my neighbour doing it. He's probably sort of mid to late 60s, and I often sort of see him coming up the road and sort of do a bit of a double take. He looks a bit like a cat burglar when he's coming back up the road.
I don't know whether it harks back to like old school cars that were inherently always convertible drive, and it was more about keeping your hands warm, because as silly as I guess I've never worn or never thought the need to wear driving gloves, but when I had my Porsche Boxster, I did buy driving gloves, and I drove that car pretty much most of the time with driving gloves.
Roof down, I assume.
Always. I never drove that car with the roof up ever, even in the rain. I did a trip to the Alps with Arkham Performance, and I did like 1,800 miles with no roof, up and down the mountains in snow, in rainstorms. even eating lunch in the car, we refused to put the roof up because that felt like cheating. And I think I got up to almost 6,500 miles in the Boxster up until the point I sold it, where I never put the roof up. Because when you drive with the roof down, you just see so much more. It's just completely different driving experience.
Yeah.
But I think, going back to, the driving gloves, I think, maybe that's why, because it does get quite breezy.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Do you think, you mentioned Minis, and obviously you've ended up in Minis now, but you've not gone down the Ford route, which is obviously what your grandfather had. Or you had Fords as well?
I've had a couple of Fords, to be fair, but they've been always family cars. I had a Ford Galaxy when the kids were young.
Yeah.
And then when the kids grew up, when that sort of needed changing, I bought the Ford C-Max.
Okay.
But I got into cars really late. I only learned to drive because my wife was expecting our first child, and I thought, I can't get a taxi to take her to the hospital. I've got to learn to drive. And I passed my test a week before she gave birth to our son. So
stressful time.
No pressure on that one.
Yeah, no, exactly. Right, you need to go and do your test. Oh, yeah, but I don't think you're ready. No, I need to go and do it, because if I don't, my wife's getting a taxi to the maternity hospital. Oh, okay.
The examiner probably took pity on you, didn't he, Ed?
Oh, he did. Do you know what? My driving test I'm probably the luckiest person out there for a driving test. I did my driving test in Cambridge. Now, I don't know if anyone knows Cambridge, and, people will be listening may well be based in Cambridge, but I did mine in rush hour, Cambridge. So I literally drove out of the test centre and then got stuck in traffic. And we went 15 minutes down, stuck in traffic, pulled off to a side street. He asked me to do a turn in the road, get back into the traffic and go back to the test centre, and then reverse park in the parking space. And that was my test over and done with.
You barely got out a second.
Mate, I definitely didn't get into fourth. Didn't do an emergency stop, just literally did a turn in the road and a reverse park in the test centre. And he went, unfortunately, you're lucky. I can't fail you because we've been stuck in traffic. You're just one of the lucky ones.
So what's he saying then, that you weren't good enough, but on that occasion, because you didn't drive far enough, you were good?
No, I guess it's one of those, isn't it? If you go for your driving test and you are driving to how the road conditions dictate, right? So if you're stuck in traffic, that's on your exam, you're stuck in traffic. I mean, can you imagine being failed because he didn't get to drive? I mean,
can they? It's just like, is it 60 minutes or something? Like, it's an hour, and whether that's an hour stuck in traffic or an hour kind of blasting around the lanes.
Exactly. So exactly that. I think I was, very lucky. But yeah, then my first car was a Mini Metro, and then you need another podcast. I think the last time I counted, I've had 125 cars that I've bought and sold.
Good God.
Wow.
Like Mike Brewer.
Yeah, I know. So as a family, my wife has always worked, so she's always had her car, and which has predominantly always been the family's car. I then, when I was in the armed forces, was married unaccompanied, so I had a car to commute backwards and forwards to wherever I was based. So that's two cars in there. And then once I got into liking cars, I then would buy a special car, but didn't want to commute in it. So my excuse was I'd spend more money on that car to sit in the garage and then buy, a knockabout car, a bit of a banger that I didn't really care about. And I remember when I was in a management position, I kept breaking down on the way to work. And my boss said to me, right, enough's enough. Take the rest of the week off and go and buy a car that doesn't break down, because I'm not having this anymore. So I didn't really have an excuse. So I went home and said, my boss told me I've got to buy a nice car because I can't keep breaking down. And, there became the two nice cars on the drive, and plus my wife's car. And so it's, there's always been at least three cars that we've owned. And that's then without the classic cars that I've owned, without the camper vans that we've owned, that have then become additional cars for family holidays. And it's just, I don't even want to talk about it, because it will depress me, the amount of money that has been wasted on cars.
What was the car that used to let you down on the way to work, Ed?
VW Lupo.
Oh, Lupo, all right.
I had a VW automatic slammed Lupo with big, deep dish wheels that probably somebody spent more money on the wheels, suspension, and tidying the bodywork than they did on servicing the engine, because it looked great. And I guess that's, is that a trait that from my old man, I paid good money for a car that looked great, and then just it just kept breaking down. So I had that. To be fair, I had that car for about 6 months before I thought, yeah, do you know what? Maybe I do need to trade it in and get a proper car. So I ended up trading that in and buying a Mini, and then went out almost instantly and bought a classic Beetle.
Okay. So you mentioned your dad kind of likes the car to look good. Was he into car cleaning on a Sunday or something like that on the drive?
No, I think he would always, my granddad the same, my dad always, and I'm very much the same. I do like my cars to be clean. I don't really like them to get dirty. But I think cleaning cars is very much a new thing, because I just used a bucket of hot soapy water, right? I think my dad would have done the same, and a sponge that he found kicking about in the garage, and and just my granddad always used to have a chamois leather, right? But you'd never, you've got to keep it damp, keep it in its box, so it'd never get washed. It would always be hanging up in its sleeve somewhere in the garage in damp conditions.
Horrible texture, isn't there, to one of those? It's like a fish.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a slimy.
I always thought it was a bit of a dark art, the chamois leather. Because like you say, it was like people used to sort of keep it in a special way, and no, you can't use it unless it's like that. And
if they dry out, they're kind of just like almost like a moccasin shoe, aren't they?
Yeah.
Stiff.
Funny old thing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, God, can you imagine now saying to somebody that you chamois leather your car? I mean, they just look at you with disgust. Like, what? What, you don't snow foam it and like double bucket and like...
I'm sure they'll come back in.
Nah.
Some shape or form, won't they? Be used for a different task. Someone will find a niche for them on TikTok or something.
Yeah. I mean, my son now uses a leaf blower to dry his car.
Yeah, don't do that. Yeah.
Like, where have we, like, I've got a dog blower, which, to be fair, was originally bought to blow dry the dogs when they get wet and muddy, but it does work very well on cars, especially for getting in the nooks and crannies. But yeah, I mean, I suppose they did clean cars on a fairly regular basis. Certainly my granddad, because his garage was separate from the house, and it was in one of these, like communal garages that you find in little villages. So it was like 10 garages all in a block, and he had like one of those garages, which was a 5-10 minute walk from his house.
Yeah.
But outside it had, in that compound, it had a cold tap. So he would have all that sort of stuff there that he could wheel it out the garage, fill a bucket of cold water, a single bucket, not a double bucket, not with a grate in it, just fill it up and chuck a dirty sponge over it. But yeah, no, I remember when my dad had the nice GTI, we had a brand new build with a garage and a drive attached to the house. That's where I remember putting on the stripes. So yeah, he was into sort of making sure that car was clean. It was a black car, and he put red Go Faster stripes on it, but had the Pirelli P-Slot wheels on it. So yeah, it was a cool car, to be fair.
Yeah.
Of all the cars, I think that's the one. I was 14, 15 then, so understanding why cars look cool. If it's the reason I'm into VWs, that's probably the reason.
Have you had a Mk1 GTI, Ed? Would you buy one?
It's the one car that I often say to people is the one car that I currently covet is a Golf GTI, because I think it is the car that does everything. My favourite shape is the Mk5. I'd want a Golf GTI in white with pretty much as close to original as possible. I'm not, like, for me, that car probably doesn't need much modification. Needs a touch, but I think it's out of the box, quite possibly one of the nicest cars. And I've never had one, and it's one that, but this is the problem, right? I still covet a 944. I still, it's just, the list goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
Where are the Mark Vs at the moment in terms of price? So what we were talking about 2004.
Yeah, I suppose.
Mark 5.
Yeah, about 2004.
Yeah, about that.
Yeah.
Probably a few grand to start, I guess.
Yeah.
For a dog?
Yeah, you get a high mileage one, I would have thought, for somewhere between 2.5 and 3.5. But the white ones are harder to come by, and most people spec the leather interior, right, when they upgrade it. So finding one with the cloth in good condition, you'll probably, I mean, I've seen, and I should have bought it a couple of years ago. There was one that an old boy had done, I know 64,000 miles, was $5,000, and I thought it was too expensive at the time. But when I think about it, that was probably the one to buy, right? It's hard, isn't it? Because whenever you're looking for one, you'll never find one. When you're not looking, or when you've just bought a new car, one will turn up, and it's like, ah. So I don't know. It's definitely a car that I still like to own. But if you spec a new one now, and I don't know how, whether you've been down that route, but Roger and I were talking about it the other day. A new Golf GTI you're looking at 60 grand plus now.
Ouch.
Staggering, yeah.
Which is, in the world of where car prices have gone, that is just crazy money.
I guess a lot of new cars, it's almost like an iPhone contract now, isn't it? Like we've all got £1,000 worth of phones sat in our pocket. Like 20 years ago, we were going to the shop and buying £100 pay as you go or whatever, and that was how it was.
Yeah.
And I guess it's the same with cars. There's obviously a few of us who are still driving pay as you go type cars, but once you're in that system, you're kind of 60 grand. It's what, £400 a month? Oh yeah, here we go, off we go.
And that is, that is the thing, isn't it? And it sort of starts a whole different conversation with like the way Mercedes are looking at going. And you buy a base spec, but they can turn things on and off. So depending on how you want to spec the car, you'll pay more money if you want electric seats. If you don't want electric seats, they just won't activate it within the computer, and therefore you won't pay for it. But what it means is when they sell it on, the new owner can opt to have it.
Okay.
It's already in the car. So it was a very interesting article I read on how it's a cost saving for manufacturers, etc., because they just make a car that does everything.
Yeah.
They then have the ability to turn it on and off. And they make more money from reselling that car every time they sell it, in essence. But that's a whole different conversation, the price of cars. I mean, it's just ridiculous now, I think. But you hit the nail on the head. Nobody I know owns a car that expensive anymore.
What do you think triggered you, Ed, then, into getting so involved with cars? Because you said that you're a bit of a late one getting into it. Is it like your kids getting a bit older or having a bit more time?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, my job didn't allow... obviously, I did 25 years in the army.
Okay.
So my job didn't really allow until I'd reached a certain level in the army and was able to spend a little bit more time, I guess indulge in a hobby or a passion. But once I'd sort of got the bug, I think I buy cars and I like personalising them and making them my own more than I like buying a car. Like, I love buying a car, like that bit of it for me is great. But I love the modifying and like putting your stamp on that car. And I bought a Mini, was the first real car that I put my sort of stamp on. And when I bought it, it was navy blue and I spec'd a full Union Jack wrap on it. And it was a bit of a stunt with Mini, and they were like, oh, it's great, we'll use it for advertising and, we'll pay for that as long as you keep it on for 6 months. After that, we'll quite happily take it off and polish the car and stuff. I remember them reaching out to me 6 months in and going, oh, would you like us to remove the wrap? And I'm like, no, definitely not. Like, I'm keeping it. And I had that car for 5 or 6 years, sold it. I bought it back twice.
Oh, wow.
I found it, bought it back and gave it to him. My son, it's his first car. He then sold it. I then bought it back when my daughter learned to drive. She actually passed her test in that car. Funny, right? So she could insure it while she was learning to drive. As soon as she passed her test in it, she couldn't insure it. They wouldn't insure her on it because they said it was too powerful. So she ended up selling it. And we've tried twice now to buy it back because it's one of those that actually I think probably is ours and should be in the family. But the guy that's currently got it won't sell it. He likes the story and he wants his son to learn to drive in it. So,
is it still Union Jacked?
Yeah, still got Union Jack on it. It is a very rare car now as well because a Mini Cooper Works car from Amorim.
Oh, yeah. Oh, from the original John Cooper.
Yeah. And it's got the original John Cooper sound kit on it. And I think they only made something like 219 of them, 133 brake horsepower. And they did it just before they released the supercharged version of the Mini. And then they ceased doing it because it was, performance-wise, it was better than the supercharged one. Just because you could use all that power all of the time.
Yeah.
Whereas the supercharged one sometimes will get you into trouble because it spools up too quickly. So so that was it. And I've had 17 minis now. I'm sitting in one of the last cars I ever built, which was B Road Hunting Club's Mini, the Monte Carlo inspired Mini that we built for a customer 4 years ago. And then just before opening what is now the Stag at Challock, he reached out and said, look, I need to sell the Mini. Would you buy it back? So I bought it back to complete the circle in some respects, that it came back to like the new launch of B Road. Was going to be my daily, but I just don't use it.
Yeah.
Obviously, Andy, you've known me. I've had a couple of different cars. The Porsche I've created in my own way and modified that. I'm doing exactly the same with the Morgan. This time, though, nicely, for Morgan, they've asked me to do it. So it's not my money I'm spending, it's theirs. So I guess cars for me, and answering the question, I got into it late just purely because, time restraints, I suppose. And I'd like to say I'm catching up for lost time because I've owned a lot of cars.
Were you ever into cars as a kid, like toy cars and stuff, or posters on the wall?
No, didn't. No, I used to love cycling when I was a kid, BMXing, all that sort of, mountain biking when mountain biking was a thing. Yeah, because I kept, like I said, we used to go to air shows a lot. I was probably more into aeroplanes and had aeroplanes on my walls and, used to make Airfix models and have them pinned from the ceiling. That was funny enough, when we went to Europe, we went and there was a load of Lamborghini Countachs and I was with Lee Crawley, who you know, Andy.
Yeah.
And he got beside himself because there was like 15 all in the same place. And I was like, I don't get it. And he's like, did you not have a poster on your wall? And I'm like, no, mate, I don't want to say on your podcast, but I think it's a very ugly car. And I know that will not go down well with a few, but I was like, I don't get it. But having seen 13 in one place, all from the UK in France, was quite I've got to be honest, that was quite an impressive sight.
Mm.
So I was never really, my son was probably 5 before I got into cars. So he's 26 now. So less than 21 years I've been into cars.
Playing catch up then.
Yeah, definitely.
I think you've probably lapped most of us already.
Sounds like you're doing all right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for spending some time with us, Ed.
That's right. No worries. Pleasure.
Been really nice to hear the stories. And I wasn't sure. I thought maybe you'd kind of be sort of petrol head through and through. But obviously interesting that you're late to it. And
I'm late to the game, and now I've created space for lots of petrol heads to get together.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was going to say, it is unusual, isn't it, to get into it later. Really, you don't hear of that so much because usually it is a case of, as soon as you learn to drive, then you're in it and you're fully involved. So it's good to hear that you can get into it later and own over 120 cars.
No, definitely not. Maybe that getting into it later when you've got some money is a better way of doing it as well.
Very true.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
But no, I'm playing catch up, like I say, or as you've just said, maybe I've overtaken a few.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you very much, man. And I look forward to coming over soon and seeing you all.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, look forward to it. All right, take it easy.
Thanks, Ed. Nice to meet you. Cheers. Bye.
Cool. That was Ed. I was really expecting him to go, oh, it's in my blood.
Yeah, I'm a bit sort of, wouldn't say stunned, but it's just surprising, isn't it, to hear of such a late developer.
Yeah, and I guess most of the guests we've had so far have been that kind of. Yeah, I remember when I was kind of this big, and my dad, my granddad or whatever had these cars, and they would kind of reel off a list.
Exactly.
And actually, whilst he's got some fond memories of that kind of Escort and kind of some journeys and stuff in it, there wasn't kind of anything which was sort of immediately pulling him in with it.
No. But Mk1 Escort, very nice. Driving gloves, very nice.
Yeah. I think a first for driving gloves, probably.
Yeah. I'd like to hear more about those. A few more driving glove appearances would be very nice.
Yeah, and the chamois leather is obviously It's not quite as inventive as the can of Pledge, or obviously as commonplace as the Fairy Liquid, but
no,
it's up there with the retro car cleaning accessory, isn't it?
Same shelf, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, it probably just would be on a shelf, just sort of hanging. And a wet chamois leather, you can just relate to that, can't you? It's kind of
strange thing. Yeah,
definitely. So good of him to join us. And yeah, if you're out there and you're in Kent, then give B Road at the Stag a look up and pop along. Go and see Ed and Rog who run that. Have yourself a drink or a burger or something, and check out the cars. And hopefully, we'll get along there at some point to see him too.
Yeah, definitely. Just look for a sort of fleet of minis outside, and then you.
Yeah, absolutely. Fleet of minis, a Morgan
with no radio.
With no radio. You know you're in the right place. So yeah, there we are. That's thanks again to everyone who's supporting us and listening, tuning in, sharing with friends, and following us on social media.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Roll some credits.
Thanks for listening to My Dad's Car podcast. If you have enjoyed this episode, please click subscribe, leave us a review, and follow us on social media. If you'd like to support us further, you can buy us a coffee or sign up to give us a monthly bump start. You'll find details on our website, mydadscar.co.uk. Bye for now.